side, in fact, oddly enough, all the more familiar than the Scottish team. And the shift in the balance of power in Australian rugby, very obvious, with 8 people from the ACT Brumbies in the side, 2 in the front row. Then we've got Harrison and Vickerman in the second row. Vickerman's won most of his caps as a replacement. In the back row, Smith and Ward. Goodness me, a fly pass from I don't know where that came from, but anyway, George Cregan wins his 103rd cap at number 9. Nobody told me about that. Stephen Larkham playing at 10. Matt Gittow, he is the brains, if you like, and Mortlock the brawn in the centre. Then how about this for 2 finishers at the back, Takiri and Rathbone, and then Chris Latham at fullback, who had an outstanding summer for Australia in the Tri-Nations. And I suppose, as you can see, the 2 flags of the competing nations laid out on the pitch in front of us at the moment, and there's George Cregan about to lead out Australia yet again. Matt, when you look at the Australian replacements bench, and you've got Wendell Saylor there, Elton Flatley, Matt Rogers there, goodness me, that shows the kind of strength in depth that Eddie Jones has to pick from.
It just makes it so much more difficult for the coach to do their job, I suppose, and to have that kind of talent, that kind of backup is just a fantastic thing for Australian rugby. To win a spot in this team is very difficult at the moment, and obviously tonight against the committed Scottish team it's going to be difficult for them, but the conditions are going to play a little bit of a part, but I'm sure that they'll be replaced and used in some capacity tonight.
When you talk about the conditions, another factor that might come into play here is the fact that the Scots, in a kind of canny little move perhaps, have actually shortened the pitch, haven't they? They've made the pitch less wide, and also the dead ball area has been reduced from 20 metres to 7. So how do you view that?
One of the best things about coming to Murrayfield, I know about Andy, when I was playing, was to have the wide pitch. It was fantastic. You could throw the ball around, and tonight they've just, I suppose they've squeezed the edges a little bit, and perhaps that's a little bit of a ploy to stop the attacking rugby of the back line, but I have to wait and see.
It's within the laws though, Andy, isn't it?
It is absolutely within the laws, and Scotland have to use everything at their disposal, so it's a good opportunity. I'm surprised they've done it, but I can also understand the reasoning why.
And as far as Scotland's approach today is going to be concerned, I saw that Chris Patterson in his pre-match interview was talking about they're going to have to score 20 points to win an international, and to score 20 points you've got to score tries, and that's been the problem that Scotland have had over the past couple of years or so. There's just been no penetration outside. Can you see the back division tonight having the necessary penetration?
Dan Parks has been playing very well for Glasgow, and Andrew Henderson outside him has been playing very as well, so they've got a bit of creativity there now. Sean Lamont on the wing, I think, is a dark horse for the British Lions next year, because I think he could be an outstanding season ahead of him. But you're right, there's been a lack of creativity. But Chris Patterson's got a key role because he's been kicking very well for Edinburgh recently. So if he can keep the scoreboard going over, ticking over, and as Matt Williams said, keep Scotland in touch, then Scotland have a chance.
Any chance of the Australians being rusty?
I think that's going to be a factor. Yeah, it's going to be a factor. As Matt Williams said, they've stepped off the plane about a week ago. They haven't played since late August, and obviously with the weather as well. But the thing about tonight for both teams is to play smart rugby, plug the corners and get your forwards involved very early.
Well, the applause you can hear is obviously for the Scotland team led out by Gordon Bullock this evening. I'm sure they will pay absolutely no attention to the odds that the bookmakers are quoting today, but Australia are 33-1 on in a 2-horse race, so you're not going to get rich backing them. Scotland 9-1. Fancy a fiver?
Always. I mean, you just got to look at the basics. Scotland are under strength. Australia are at full strength with incredible strength in the bench, as we've said. So really, those odds are probably quite fair. But if Scotland tonight is all about performing themselves, if they can, as Matt said, keep close, keep it tight, keep the scoreboard ticking over, then who knows what can happen later on.
It is worth saying as well, Matt, that in the last 4 internationals, Scotland have been there or thereabouts at half-time, haven't they? It's only in the second half that the Australians have actually begun to run away with the game.
That's exactly right, and the biggest thing is to be able to do that, keep in touch.
Well, as you can hear behind us now, it's the national anthems, starting with Australia. rallying call for the Scottish team in the first of these 4 Abbey tests to come. Japan, another match against Australia and South Africa. Your commentators tonight here in Murrayfield are Philip Matthews and Andrew Cotter.
Thank you, John. It is a game which is rather sneaked up on the blind side, not a full Murrayfield or indeed a full-strength Scottish side, but it's a test and a chance for others to step out of the shadows and seize their opportunity. As we mentioned, history at Murrayfield today for the first time since 1985, a Scottish team of entirely home-based players. Among them, Stuart Moffat, 2 years after his last cap, starts at full-back. A few months ago he was thinking about another career when Glasgow said they didn't want him, but Scotland do today. Look out also for open-side flanker Donny McFadden. He really came to the fore in the 2 tests against Australia in June and no doubt will be everywhere today and crucial to Scotland's chances. Unlike other sides, Australia haven't undergone wholesale changes post-World Cup. George Gregan sneaks up to 103 caps today. A rather newer to the setup, South African-born Clyde Rathbone on the wing. A hat-trick of tries against England in the summer really announced his arrival today. Well, he keeps Wendell Saylor on the bench. In the pack, joining the ever-dangerous George Smith and Phil Waugh in the back row. John Rowe gets a rare start at number 8, but otherwise it is a settled and very, very experienced Wallaby lineup. And in the mist, well, it's not mist, it's firework residue, we can see Steve Walsh, a young referee from New Zealand, who'll be taking control of things today. I hope he can peer through the murk and the gloom and see things. And alongside me, Phil Matthews. And Philip, well, we've said it all before. We've said it all before, if we can see it, that it's going to be a huge test for Scotland today, and they're rather callow side.
It is, and they're really going to have to impose themselves if they stand any chance against this Australian side. What they failed to do, I guess, over the recent years is really impose their own style of play, and to be looking for Willie Anderson's influence on the forwards to maybe quicken up the pace of this game with quick lineouts. Looking also for Chris Cusser to maybe take some very quick penalties and just not let Australia get into that familiar pattern that they want to get into and start to control this game. So Scotland really want to up the pace of this game, and they can't afford to sit back and wait for it to happen in the first 20. They've really got to start from the off.
Yeah, Auld Reekie has never looked quite so murky. I'm sure it was clear a moment ago, but that's Stephen Larkham through the gloom getting ready to get things underway, and it's a joy to be a commentator on a night such as this. But I'm sure the gloom from the fireworks is going to clear soon, and the autumn series for Scotland is going to get underway against this formidable Wallaby outfit. And away we go, and we peer into the darkness, and a long kick out from Larkham. It's taken in low by Ali Hogg, and back it comes to Parks deep inside his own 22 and finds a decent touch where Takiri thinks about the quick one but thinks better of it. Lottie Takiri is going to be a danger man today. A lot of pressure on Dan Parks as well, the Australian-born fly half. Absolutely, and really if Scotland are going to control this game, Parks is going to need to kick to the tram lines, and you'll expect the Scottish wingers to get up and pressure and force the Australians to kick to touch, giving Scotland control of the lineouts, because if Australia control the set pieces in this game, well then really it's going to be one-way traffic for most of the afternoon, and it's going to be difficult for Scotland really to get themselves into this game. Huge test for Scott McLeod coming into the Scottish second row, because he's got a hard act to follow. Scott Murray, one of the frontline line-out jumpers in the world. That's right, and little enough time really to get the Scottish line-out really working well, because these days more and more it is all about having everybody clicking and moving together, getting the moves rehearsed and really slick. So we'll see how that goes tonight. Gordon Bullock has an early scrape treated, and the first line out of the game is safely won by Australia. Gregan setting his back line free. It's Gato, it's George Smith crashing in up over the halfway line. Australia with options either side, but fumbled forward, and Scotland now get their chance. Cusseter setting that back line away. It's Ali Hogg shuffling his way forward, making some yardage. Back it comes to Parks. Parks puts Brute on ball over the head of Takiri, and very well directed indeed, and hobbles into touch, and Scotland have crept up to within 5 metres or so of the Australian line. Yes, and Dan Parks will have been hoping that was just going to hold up a bit. Nevertheless, it's a pressurised line out just outside the Australian 5 metre line, so looks like Australia are going to cut it immediately, so they themselves are going to want to control this area. Huge pressure in this early defensive line out. Jeremy Paul is the hooker for Australia today. Justin Harrison will be his main jumper throughout the afternoon, and Paul's throw is a little bit loose and spilled, and Scotland may have seized upon it as the forwards pile in And they have it.
Advantage off in the
Back
side.
it comes to Cussiter. Parks, no way through there.
Back here.
But Scotland
Round
have a
offside.
penalty. Australia offside. And a bright start for Chris Patterson's Scotland.
Well, that's exactly the start of it. They challenged this line. I thought Australia would be a bit disappointed. They weren't able to gather that. It was a good
Boys
throw,
on
but
this side.
Rowe just wasn't able to gather. They got the turnover, and Cussiter gets that away quickly, resulting in the penalty. And they've gone for the line-out, so that shows confidence from the start.
Pardon?
Interesting. Going for the line out this early. And it's Bullock calling the shots, the captain and the hooker.
Advantage.
But spilled by Hines. And Australia will emerge with it.
Right. Come back, Blue.
They get a bit of a shunt away from their own try line.
Advantage over.
Huge kick hoisted high by Gregan. Takiri's underneath it and Takiri claims it. And Australia have made headway. Scotland's attacking
Last feet here,
platform
Blue. That's fine. He's
is
come
but a
through.
memory. Ali Hogg does his best, but Phil was quickly in there playing scrum half. And does so again. Larkham now juggled by Australia and loose once again. Early errors from both sides and Australia under pressure. Mortlock now tries to barge his way
Last
clear.
feet, Blue.
Quick back from Gregan and Gito under pressure, and Gito's kick is drunkenly downfield, and now Scotland get a chance. Stuart Moffat hands on ball for the first time. Parks coming round the fringes and poleaxed in the tackle by George Smith. He may not do that again. Nathan Hines picks up. Ali Hogg in support, and now Scotland have a little bit of space down that far side. It's Cussiter
Hands, let go.
just outside the Australian
Back
22.
on side.
Chris Patterson comes in to play scrum half. Parks onto Bullock,
Advantage,
and Bullock
lost forward.
spills in the contact.
Lost forward, scrum, gold.
I think the ball may be greasy, Philip.
Right here.
Yes, it's a little greasy, and they've got the right approach, Scotland. They're trying to keep the ball alive in the tackle, but just execution letting them down a little bit. Here comes the tackle. That was a big hit by George Smith on Dan Parks. Dan Parks really stood up a little bit high in the tackle, gave him a good bit target, and George Smith isn't going to pass up an opportunity like that, is he?
It's quite a slight figure as well, Dan Parks.
Yes, but that's... George Smith is not slight at all. He's small by stature, but that's a very, very solid, compact frame he has, and both himself and Phil Waugh, I guess, really throwing up a challenge for Donny McFadgen. Donny McFadgen maybe a carbon copy of these two guys, but seems to be playing against two of them tonight.
George Smith was really a man who came to the fore in the 2001 Lions
Gold
test.
ball.
Still a young
Gold
man,
ball for knock on, mate.
and the first scrum of
Crouch and hold.
the evening. You see that Scotland fairly experienced in the front row, second row not so, and they're up against it in the back row. Basically, the Australian pack is rather more experienced, most of Scotland's caps coming from Gordon Bullock. But pressure
Advantage
from
here, lost
Cussiter,
forward.
and Scotland have a penalty, and good work from the Scotland scrum, and good work from Chris Cussiter.
Well, as I've just noticed that Australia from the set pieces have been very unwilling to kick to touch and give Scotland any kind of a platform through the lineouts. Cussiter was on hand there, did very, very well to spoil Rowe. Royal went down with the ball. The Scottish back row came through and just penalised for holding on.
Just be, if you're going to get, you can't touch the scrum.
So it's going to be a chance for the first points of the game from Chris Patterson. It's fairly straight on to the posts. Chris Patterson wastes little time, but wide. And
Those are the opportunities that need to be taken once they present themselves. Presented largely through, not necessarily through Scottish pressure, but Australia's real reticence to kick for touch and give Scotland any kind of momentum from set pieces, and really they're probably suffering from that. They've pinned themselves in their own 22 when maybe a relieving kick, because they should be fairly confident in challenging the Scottish lineup.
The 22's up here if you need it. Okay.
It'll be a
Thanks.
22 restart for Australia, and Larkham goes long, very long indeed. It's Parks who sets free Stuart Moffat now, and Moffat puts boot on ball as well. Latham under a bit of pressure gets his kick away. Now a chance for Scotland to come again. Ali Hogg carries it forward.
No!
Scott Gray, in fact, up to the halfway line. Scotland trying to tidy it up. Now it comes back. Parks slips as he kicks, but gets a decent nudge away again, turning to Keary. And the big winger gives it to a man who can kick. And Stephen Larkham with a decent nudge to this near side touch.
No option for Larkham from that position. All of his team in front of him had to find the touch, and Scotland cutting the line out immediately. That's what they need to do, just not let Australia settle into any kind of a normal pattern.
Scotland's line out.
Get it in, please.
Gordon Bullock just told to get it in, which he does, rather untidily, but Custer has it now. Bullock does his bit, and it comes back on the Scottish side. Carried on by Graham Morrison.
Come back on!
Henderson, his centre partner, another couple of metres. Alan Jacobson,
Run clear, gold! Fine.
put forward, charging upfield. Scotland making a bit of headway.
Here's out now!
Jacobson once again at the heart of that drive. Scotland may well have lost it though.
Onside!
And Gregan sets free his backline once again. Guito just getting that kick away before the oncoming Scottish defence, but a good kick it has been. Matt Guito is so key to the Australian backline. It's a backline full of talent, but Guito certainly is one of the most talented.
Yeah, so it's great for Larkham to have that option just to move the ball that little bit wider if he's under pressure, and he knows that Guito's going to be able to find the touch. But disappointing for Scotland not being able to keep that continuity going.
Line out solid once again though. Backline just a little bit crowded. Some of the forwards out there as well lend their support. It's carried on by Scott Gray. Parks with the up and under, more up than anything else. Larkham takes it well and offloads to Keary. Keary can show his strength, cuts infield, but well held, well tackled. And the crowd rise to that, but now Australia have men on the outside. It's taken on by Rathbone, chips ahead. And did he chip too far? Well, he's found a decent touch, but you see the danger of the Australian backline. Clyde Rathbone, well, England know all about him with a hat-trick of tries against them in the summer. South African born though, former South African under-21s. True Wallaby now.
Well, Larkham really trying to get that ball wide, really from the off, and that's the Australian side that we know. They get that ball into space so quickly, and that's really, I guess, what Matt Williams was trying to do in terms of cutting down and making this pitch a little bit narrow for them, trying to reduce their opportunity to do that.
Front pod doesn't squeeze for me too much.
Scotland, when they resume, are going to be pegged back right on the defensive, but it's treatment first of all.
Just holding him.
It looks like Alan Jacobson, it is. A sturdy fellow. He's got a hard act to follow though, filling Tom Smith's shirt. And huge pressure on Scotland here, huge pressure for Gordon Bullock to find his man. His man is Nathan Hines, and he has found him. Trying to heave and drive the way out of the danger area, just a few more metres and they get a good drive going. Punching away at an angle, and it's Jacobson who's driving once again, and good work from Scotland, and the reward is a penalty.
Well, that spoke volumes for their organisation there, because they must be outweighed man for man against this Australian pack. Well, they can't avoid having to take on this Australian pack when it comes to defensive situations like that.
So Dan Parks will, at a rather more leisurely pace, clear the lines. Huge kick down that far side touch. Still rather peering into the gloom. And Matt Williams,
Please step off, please.
well, he must be fairly pleased with what he's seen so far.
Yeah, Matt Williams will be pleased. I think Willie Anderson particularly will probably be pleased with the set pieces.
Former teammate of yours, Philip. Ali Hogg spills it in the tackle as he comes forward, and the ball is getting no stickier.
Blue ball lost.
Yeah, as we spoke about that at the top of the programme, they really can't afford those kind of mistakes. They kind of gave a bit of a common theme throughout last season. They really need to be able to hold on the ball. Possession, good possession is going to be precious enough tonight.
Fiddly stuff at the moment, both sides just feeling their way out, shaking off the rust a little bit. Now Australia get a chance to come. It's Rathbone bursting through, looking for support, which he finds, and it's carried on by Mortlock as far as the line and over. He slides in, and Australia are off the mark. And what a try! It looks so simple, and finished off in style by Stirling Mortlock.
Well, you'd have to say it's got to look as though they were just caught napping there a little bit, but that's the way it is against Australia. They can really attack from anywhere. Larkham just pulls that ball inside. It's very, very simple, really. And Mortlock, like he always does, is always in support. It was all very, very simple when it happened.
Well, it was Rathbone, who created it.
Rathbone really aware to where the space was and where the support runners were. And at the end of the day, try for Mortlock.
That makes it 200 points for Stirling Mortlock in Australian colours, which is not a bad milestone. More importantly, it's 7-0 with Matt Guito's conversion from right in front of the posts.
Yeah, it's just a very simple ball. There's nothing really complicated about that. In Australia, we're kind of lucky enough in that one of the Scottish defenders just seemed to get tripped up there. Otherwise, Rathbone would have been taken earlier and maybe not got his pass away.
You can come from there as long as you're not over the line when you kick the ball.
The worrying sign for Scotland there, Philip, is that it was fairly easy and the defence was split asunder.
You know, very often the best attacking opportunities these days are coming from set pieces, because at least you've got man on man and you don't have all the forwards lined out the pitch. There seems to be a little bit more space, and Australia, more than most sides, are aware of that.
Dan Parks restart fumbled into touch, and Scotland will have the line out. And they have to, if not hitting back, they have to put a dampener on the Australian attack, because it looks like it could just be sparking into life.
Yes, and Australia have always been very, very adept at attacking from set pieces, and very, very innovative when it comes to bringing in runners from different angles, and that really was what caught Scotland out on that occasion.
Justin Harrison interfering at the front and disrupting, and the ball is loose. Scotland just about tidying it up, which they do now. Parks looking for support, and it comes from Morrison cutting infield. A huge centre. Gordon Bullock, well, he's lost it forward again.
Playing advantage, guys.
They're playing Australian advantage, but they'll get their chance now anyway. Guito finds Takiri, and Takiri finds a little bit of space, and now he finds George Gregan. Nobody with him.
Let it go! Backwards.
But they're up into the Scottish half. Phil Waugh quickly upon it. Now Larkham finds Phil Waugh there. It's Bill Young tidying up in the scrum, and now Gregan to Guito once again. Pokes the kick down into the Scottish 22. Stuart Moffat, plenty of time and plenty of boot. But again, Stuart Moffat, who's making his first appearance in 2 years. Again, though, Philip, we're seeing mistakes really from Scotland at crucial moments.
Yeah, both sides kind of struggling to hold on to the ball. There is a light smattering of rain still on the pitch, and that ball is fairly wet and greasy, but these guys really should be able to hold on to it.
Mortlock, the try scorer. Again, the Australian backline comes. Guito inside, Guito into a bit of space, hauled down at the last, just outside the Scottish 22. Gregan looking for options once again.
Last week, guys, come back on side 4, goal.
Quickly through come the Scottish backline, and it's been pinched. Even the most experienced scrum halves sometimes get mugged. Turnover ball once again, though. And Gregan gets a second chance. Larkham, here's the crossfield kick that we've seen so many times for Takiri, but Moffat is there. He'll call for the mark.
Back here, please. 15.
Takiri bearing down on Moffat, but he had enough time, just not quite well directed enough from Stephen Larkham on that occasion.
No, Takiri's probably made that his trademark, hasn't he? And certainly Larkham seems more aware than most out has of that particular move. They've got a real partnership and how so productive that particular move is for them. And again, what Matt Williams is thinking today in terms of narrowing the touchlines but also shortening this dead ball line was maybe to reduce the opportunity for Larkham and Takiri to increase their try count from that particular move. But that's the second time he's tried it already tonight.
Jeremy Paul again a little bit long but athletically seized upon by Wickham, and now Paul has a chance once again after working the 1-2.
Come on, fight!
Australia charging up to the Scottish 22. George Smith, all action flanker.
That's it, guys, here we go.
Again, this time playing scrum half. Larkham finds Gate, a little pop pass inside. Takiri coming in off the wing. Well held, but Australia still have it, and Smith once again. All the time, Australia coming forward. Gregan scooping it back, looking for a gold jersey. And Australia have the scrum for a Scottish knock-on.
It's just here, guys. Hookers.
Yeah, he was trying a lovely little reverse pass there, but nobody there. And unfortunately, Bruce Douglas just couldn't hold that one.
Scotland are under the cosh a little bit at the moment. The Wallaby player down.
Defensive line. Just to give me half metre on offside line, okay?
You know, little mistakes creeping in, nothing more than just confidence and a little bit of panic on the ball. That's really all it is.
Daniel Vickerman getting a bit of treatment. Giant lock forward. Another one who really began his career playing for South Africa. But the Wallabies are pleased to have him in really for the injured Nathan Sharp today. He's become the mainstay of the Australian second row. Again, this inexperienced Scottish scrum under pressure.
Australia, I want you down before I call engage. I will not call engage until you're down. Wait, no, engage! Half! It's out!
And they get a decent push on. And Larkham fumbles, a rare mistake from the elegant standoff. Well, the ball must be slippery.
Yes, that ball must be slippery. He probably just took his eye off that a little bit.
I thought it was alright.
A little bit anxious. Yes, when that ball is slippery, you you tend to need a little bit more time. You're conscious of the fact that your pass is going to be a little bit more deliberate, and maybe just looking for an extra half second he didn't have.
Scotland are doing rather better in the error stakes than Australia, but Australia 7-0 up as Scotland get their chance to barge their way out of their own half. Deep it comes for Parks, and he's rather skewed his kick a little bit. Moffat it was.
It was Moffat, but this is the part of the game where Scotland really need to try and keep the momentum they had at the start of the game going again. The game just seems to be slowly coming back towards Australia. It's becoming a bit more patterned, full line outs, Scotland kicking for touches. They need to get back in control of this game.
Long throw from Jeremy Paul. Harrison finds it, and now Takiri has it. And he has McFadden round his legs as well. Still with Australia though, Jeremy Paul now, the hooker, crashing forward. Larkham and men over for Australia, and it's Rathbone for the line, and it's Australia's second try, and once again, worryingly for Scotland, it looks so simple.
Yes, it all looked very simple and ominous from Moffat's kick to touch, where he had no real option, but that's where Australia like it. They love set pieces, and that's where they score the majority of their tries. Straight from the set piece. Ball is nothing particularly strange about this try. It was a simple 2-1. This time Rathbone finishing off, having been the provider earlier on.
It was fairly simple, as Philip said. Jeremy Paul's initial onslaught setting it up. And we know what Clyde Rathbone can do, because he did it 3 times against England in the summer, and he has already done it once this afternoon against Scotland.
Yeah, maybe Sean Lamont just a little bit little bit naive on that, showing a little bit of lack of experience and just getting too close to Clyde Rathbone. Rathbone just moved in behind him.
Now Matt Guito, right side for a left footer, and a pretty decent job.
And that's salutary lesson for Scotland. They need to play this game in Australia's half of the field. This is it again, and the key really here was Paul really gets the ball in behind the Scottish defence, but the ball comes very, very quickly. There's barely a ruck and the ball was back, gave Scotland no time to react whatsoever.
Simple try, Scotland under pressure. And the restart seized well by Australia, and they make some yardage once again, and Gregan kicks high and kicks long. Patterson takes it and takes the tackle of Larkham as well, and it's turned over.
Backwards, guys, play on.
Didn't go forwards. Well, it has now, it's gone forwards to Scottish hands. Clearing kick from Cassitar.
Scrum it. Lost forward gold.
And they'll come back for the initial knock-on from Australian hands, and Scotland will have the scrum.
Yes, they'll have the scrum just outside of 22, but this presents them with a bit of a dilemma. They don't really want to be kicking straight to touch and giving Australia yet another attacking line out.
No half-back. No, wait guys.
Dan Parks will be looking for keeping the ball in hand and just trying to play through some of the phases and get it into the Scottish, into the Australian half that way.
Blue.
And maybe force Australia to kick to touch.
Second time of asking, the scrum crashes together, and a huge drive from Australia. Ali Hogg sets off.
Head out! Head out!
And a Scottish penalty.
You need to listen.
Yeah, well, that'll do it. Paid off. They got the penalty. If they'd have kicked to touch, it would have been ball back to Australia, handed the momentum back to them. Now they've got a relieving penalty, which will give them the set piece to give them possession at the line out.
Daniel Vickerman, the culprit. Dan Parks takes his reward, and they'll come all the way up to the halfway line.
You on halfway line? Yeah.
I'm sure Eddie Jones is rather pleased with what he's seen. Not a sign of rust, maybe in the first few moments, but since then, slick wallaby machine in full flight. Scotland go long and take it well. This is Parks finding Patterson in from his exile on the wing, looking for the ball. Lamont now is bundled into touch, but just for a moment, Scotland came to life.
Yes, it looked good, but really they needed to keep that ball infield if they can, and maybe the narrowness in the pitch going against Scotland on that occasion. Lamont really needed to cut back inside, maybe just that lack of experience again, needed to keep that ball alive.
He's a big strong man, but Mortlock was equal to the task, and the line out is long and untidy. Australia though have it now. Larkham looking for his partner in crime, Guito.
Right, let it go now, 7 blue!
George Gregan with George Smith just poking away down this blind side. Jeremy Paul takes his turn.
Heads off. Here we go.
All the time Australia just softening Scotland up. Well picked up by Larkham, and his option is the kick. Moffat and slices it again.
Sure.
And once again leaves Scotland under pressure.
Does leave him under pressure, and Moffat didn't have a huge amount of pressure on that. If he just moved the ball wide, he would have seen Sean Lamont out there standing, but
yeah, sure.
Just need to be a little bit cuter when it comes to that, because tactically this is key. Just having a big influence on the game at the moment. They're getting plenty of possession, but it's what they do with it and the execution that's making the difference so far.
That tells the story, I suppose. Australia dominating, and they've made their domination tell with 2 tries. Not so far in front in possession, but again, it's what you do with it. Now Chris Patterson, a little bit groggy, but Dr. James Robson administers the magic sponge, and he's back. A key player, but again, he's out in the wing, and many players I know, Philip, would like to see him playing stand-off for Scotland again.
Well, I think many players and many commentators on the game would like to see that, but I guess if he's not getting his game at out half in Heineken Cup, it's difficult to come up to this level and suddenly start playing.
Oh, guys, come back on 3.
Australian ball safely gathered. Larkham again, little poking, probing kick down this near side for Takiri, and he just about got his giant hands upon it. And the idea was there, and it was well executed.
Was well executed, but the narrowness of the pitch worked for Scotland on that occasion. You could see the old try line or the old touch line. It would have possibly stayed in, but
the master plan. Well taken by Scotland, the line out. Furious Australian defence. Custer again, and again the ball is spilled. Lost forward, says Steve Walsh. It's a matter of time before the whistle. Scotland can't afford this.
6
no,
goals.
Lions really should have been taking that one. It was a difficult enough one. It was fired at head height, but he got both hands to it.
Wait for my call. Get down, please, Blue. Engage!
Australia just beginning to exert their superiority in the scrum. Gito looking for support inside from Mortlock.
12 Blue! Last feet, guys.
Swivels and sets it up once again. This is Harrison.
Come outside. Hands out now.
Huge lock forward, making inroads. Phil Waugh.
No. 3 obstructed accidentally. Scrum.
And relief for Scotland.
Yeah, it's a rare mistake by Australia there. Jeremy Paul, I think it was, just picking the ball out with Alistair Baxter in front of him, running into him. That was accidental offside. Gives Scotland a rare chance to relieve their lines, but it's a scrum, and again they're going to have to keep this ball alive.
They have to get their captain and hooker back on his feet as well. He's Scotland's most capped forward, third most capped player, and he's the captain, and he's fit again.
Scrum. Gold ball. Blue ball, sorry. Catch and hold. Get down. Again.
Pressure for Scotland on their scrum just outside.
Keep it up, keep it up.
Their own 22.
Come on.
Scoop back from
12,
Cussiter.
be careful where you go. Yeah.
And the kick from Parks is good, but it's quickly taken by Takiri. A little bit squint, but away we go. Carried on by Latham.
By hand, 7.
Actually wasting no time in setting up another attack. Gregan digging for it. George Smith. Little loop with Larkham, now Gito, now Mortlock, and he's got Rathbone with him, and Clyde Rathbone is going to do it again for the corner. Again, it looks so simple, but Clyde Rathbone is in for his second, Australia's third, and already the Wallabies are moving out of sight.
Well, they're cutting him apart at will here. It's all so simple. Ball has moved very, very quickly from the ruck by Australia, and then they're creating overlaps at ease. Smith just halts the midfield defence, and Scotland are trying to play a rush defence, so they are committing them. But again, Sean Lamont just gives Rathbone far too much time and space. He's up a little bit too quick on him. Australia, better than any other side, I guess, in World Rugby, very, very quick to exploit the defensive tactics of the opposition. They know that Scotland are playing this rush defence, so they're committing them early. They're getting in behind them very, very easily. Lamont and this back three for Scotland just need to hang back a little bit and wait for things to develop in front of them.
There'll be a chance for Matt Gito once again with his 100% record. Try and make it 3 kicks from 3, and to try and stretch the Wallabies' lead further and add insult to Scottish injury. It's going through the minds of the Scottish players as they stand behind the posts. 3 tries down already. And another very decent nudge from Matt Gito. 3 kicks out of 3 from him. 21 points from Australia. And what way back is there for Scotland?
Well, it's particularly demoralising when you see the ease with which Australia are doing this. It's pretty much the same thing every time.
Restart for Scotland, beleaguered Scotland already, and it's gathered safely by Harrison.
That's fight 3.
Just about into touch, but not quite, and Australia get a chance to come again. Larkham, he kicks for this near side touch, and Matt Burke, former Wallaby legend, must be very pleased indeed with what he's seen so far.
3 blue offside lines, eh? Work hard for me, yep. Just because
That's right, Andrew. Australia's playing some good football, simple football at the moment, and the key to is that they're recycling the ball. They're able to commit the Scottish defence and get out wide.
Pretty much sums it up from Matt Burke. It's good football, it's simple football. It doesn't have to be great at the moment because Scotland have been found wanting a little bit in defence, but they get their chance now to have a little wander down that far side, but again lost forwards. Too many Scottish mistakes, and it sets free Australia once again into acres of space. Gregan is there, Gregan trying to get the ball off to men on his shoulder, but a good covering tackle. Still Australia though deep inside the Scottish 22. Mortlock to Phil Waugh, Mortlock once again, Mortlock trying to go himself, 10 metres out. Still with Australia, the try line gets closer and Takiri is over and it's becoming a rout.
Well, just as Matt Burke said, they're committing this Scottish defence very easy, but they're getting very, very quick ruck ball as well. Conversely, Scotland have been finding it very, very difficult because Australia have been competing very, very well at the breakdown. So that's quick ruck ball. It's moved very, very quickly by Giteau acting like a flanker, and the ball's just whipped very wide, and Scotland, Nathan, really no chance of defending that. Nathan Hines with a 3-on-1 is not going to keep Australia out at that stage.
Not even a narrow pitch could save Scotland there, and Takiri gets his name on the try scoring sheet for the first time, but it's the fourth for Australia. And for the fourth time, Matt Giteau will get his chance to pop the ball between the posts, and this is what he has in front of him in the virtual kicker. A few more virtual spectators than here tonight, but Matt Giteau, you see how it's narrowed the posts, but he's been on target so far, 3 from 3, just outside the 22. Largely silent Murrayfield crowd. What a kick from Matt Giteau, curling it round. It's 4 kicks from 4 from Matt Giteau. It's 4 tries from Australia, and it's a painful lesson in rugby from the Wallabies for Scotland.
Well, this is Australia again. They're very, very conscious of all of the space inside with this Scottish defence right up in their face. On that occasion it was Paul putting it inside, which resulted in the second phase ball, and after that it was very, very simple for Australia.
Gregan with the hoisted kick into touch. Matt Burke was very happy. Andy Nicol will not be quite so happy. Andy?
No, you're right, Andrew. It's not going particularly well, obviously, for Scotland. There's everything Australia are doing is working, everything Scotland doing is not working. Compounding that with Giteau's kicking all the goals, so it's going to be a long, long night for Scotland.
See if they can come back with a little 1-2. Tried to work by Bullock, but it didn't. Again, lost, and Australia emerged with it. Long kick downfield from Larkham, and just finds the touch with a final gasp of the ball. And already the shoulders of Chris Patterson are going down.
Yeah, on this stage, Chris Larkham doesn't really, or Steve Larkham, I should say, doesn't really care whether he makes those touches. Oh, he's got the confidence to know that if he just gets the ball downfield, his wingers are going to chase it and hopefully get and force a Scottish line out. Australian liners operating pretty well at the moment, and Scotland really struggling to win their own ball cleanly.
So far it's a grey Dreif night for Scottish rugby. They have their line out. It's carried on by Patterson. Parks puts boot to ball and it's charged down, and if Larkham can play football to the line, he'll have another try. The bounce of the ball, he takes it and he'll slide over the line. Did he get the ball down?
Hold up.
And we're going to go upstairs.
He was almost casual about that, wasn't he?
I just want to see whether he was actually in contact with the ground when he slid into in goal, please. Whether the ball was in contact with the ground.
And that'll be down to Donald Courtney to have a look, the video referee.
Yeah, he was very casual. He went to ground very, very early here, reckoning that just that greasy surface was going to push him over.
Nathan Hines is the man who could have saved Scotland.
this should be a better angle. Ball's definitely in contact with the ground, but that's fine. And once he slides over,
well, it's still grounded there. Oh, lifting up. He was strolling towards the line, wasn't he?
He was. That's sign of supreme confidence all the time in the world. I think he's got to give that.
Well, the ball was certainly lifted up at some point, but was he over the line before that happened?
Pardon? I'll ask him as soon as he comes back to me. He's doing
It's the other angle which will show it.
Yeah, he did. All right. The timekeeper.
Clearly the ball's in contact with the ground there. Slides over and beyond the line. That's got to be a try.
That's the angle which shows it. Lifted up too late. Steve Walsh waits for the decision of Donald Courtney.
Are you saying it's inconclusive whether he grounded the ball?
It's a good job for Scotland that Philip Matthews isn't the video
Okay,
referee.
so therefore I'm going to go scrum 5 Australia.
Well, it's got to be grounded there.
Thank you.
That's clearly off the
Scrum
ground
5
then.
Australia ball.
Well, Scotland survive trial by video.
Wait,
Well, again, if I had been sitting up in that box, I'd have to have given that. But I suppose wonders whether that was a vote of sympathy. Had it been the other way around.
Don't touch.
Well, it may only be a stay of execution. A huge drive now from the Australian scrum, but spilled once again.
Lost forward. Scrum.
Even before George Smith could get his mitts on the ball, the referee's whistle had gone, and Scotland survive again.
Yeah, but John Rowe just in a little bit too much of a hurry there, moving forward before he really got the ball in his hands. Contrast that with all the time in the world that Steve Larkham thought he had. That's experience for you.
Ali Hall picks up and drives. Now it comes back to Parks, and he does well scooping it up at the second attempt into touch. Takiri takes it quickly, and it's Latham who gets his chance to charge forward. Now Phil Waugh onto Rathbone, keeps the ball alive. Larkham once again, a little bit of football. It's taken by Moffat under pressure.
Come on, side.
And Parks once again
4
finds touch, but Scotland simply cannot get away from their own half.
No, the execution of that is fine, but I guess, you do wonder how long they can defend this kind of territorial advantage that Australia have in terms of the possession as well. Really need to get out of this half. And
Australia attacking at will. Bit of a spill, didn't go forward. Gito has it. George Smith, little pop pass inside.
Lost forward with the wind, to pick it up.
And this time it's the Wallabies who lose it forward. And Scotland breathe again, just a few minutes before half time.
Yeah, Jeremy Paul just trying to pick it up, moving forward before he really had it in his hands. It seems to be a common feature of a lot of the mistakes here today. Scotland just struggling really when they do get possession. They just don't seem as composed as they need to be on the ball, and just handing the ball back through knock-ons or failing to hold it in a tackle. Just need to relax a little bit, let the balls come to them.
3, stay there.
Well, this is a baptism of fire for Scotland. Little chip ahead from Henderson, chip too far.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And nothing is going right for the home sides at the moment. I wonder if you remember your first cap, Philip, and how nervous you were. A lot of them experiencing that today. And what must Matt Williams be thinking of all this?
Yes, well, I guess I didn't have to contend with a greasy ball, although I don't know if anybody remember the old brown balls he used to play with, and you really did find them like a bar of soap on a wet day. But coincidentally enough, my first was against Australia.
Now Gregan once again toying with the Scottish defence, and Gito now, and Takiri bursting his way down this touchline. Opts for a little bit of football as well. And Australia really, they're attacking at the leisure.
Oh, they're so comfortable on the ball, really. They've all the time in the world, don't they? And just confident if it doesn't work out, they'll recycle, they'll go again.
And they have the line out again. Jeremy Paul to Gregan. Finds Gito. Gito finds Mortlock coming in, and nobody can hold back Stirling Mortlock, and Jeremy Paul, the hooker, charging towards the line.
To the side.
Is it lost forward?
First infringement, 7 in. You stay there.
Donny McFadden is the culprit, and Australia have a penalty, and I'm pretty sure they won't kick a goal. Taken quickly. Men out wide for Australia. The pass is a little bit high and loose, and the Scottish defence is there, and Scotland have a scrum, and just a rare bright moment for the men in blue.
Well, you can just see the experience gap, I guess, is pretty clear at the moment. It's a well-oiled Australian machine, very settled, very experienced side, but Scotland on the other hand fielding a relatively young side, missing at least half a dozen of their first choice players.
Missed tackles and Mortlock set it up. I'm sure Jeremy Paul heard the line beckoning.
There's another angle from Mortlock's. That's just whacked out by
A loose
Stuart
pass
Moffat.
which reprieved Scotland on that occasion, but there were men over there again for Australia.
Hold. Waiting. Get down. Get the ball. Yeah. Again. Steady here. Steady here. Flip. Hey. Good.
Murrayfield crowd is ominously silent.
Let's go, Brucey. Let's go, Brucey. Hey, don't milk it. 7 gold. Don't milk it. Clutch and
Chaps
hold.
in gold in the crowd seem to be enjoying themselves. Australian free kick. Now Scotland have to get back and get ready.
You've got to listen. No, fair for them. Listen for my call, please. Scrum.
George Gregan just taking his time, calling for a scrum. He knows that their pack
Listen
has
for
the
my
edge.
call. Crouch and hold.
well, not only do they have
Down,
the edge
please,
as well,
Blue.
but Gregan wants all of those loose forwards out of the way and in the scrum, because
Scrum half blue.
that'll give Australian backs an awful lot more space.
Here come Australia again, and another Larkham error with that greasy ball, and it's hacked clear, and the chase is on. 3 Wallabies back there. Scotland in hot pursuit through Morrison, but he misses Takiri, and now Takiri comes, but he spills, and the ball is loose once again. Is there time for a final flourish for Scotland as we head into injury time? The chip kick is poor. George Smith has it.
Let go!
And Gregan heaves the ball downfield. Stuart Moffat underneath it.
Okay, guys.
His turn for a mistake.
Thank you. Half time.
And that is the end to a half which has been turbulent and troubled for Scotland. It has been a half of rugby they will want to forget, but it is a half that they are going to have to improve on after the break to avoid a rout at the hands of the Wallabies today. 4 tries for Australia from Mortlock, 2 from Clyde Rathbone, 1 from Lottie Takiri, all converted, nothing for Scotland. 28-0 they trail at half-time.
Well, turbulent and troubled, and Scotland had chances early on, but once Mortlock had scored that first try, and then the second one here from Rathbone, then you really had to wonder what the score was going to be at the end of play. Maybe that was a forward pass, but anyway, Rathbone through in the corner again, and here's the 4th try coming from Lottie Takiri all the way over from the other wing, and that's 28-0 because
I mean, you can't score from there.
people always say in this kind of situation, you've got to start as though it's 0-0, Andy. It's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done. I mean, it's a nightmare being in changing rooms in that situation. But Scotland have got nothing to lose this half. Just go out there, try and play error-free rugby, and get some respectability back in this.
Okay, well, this is a very big second half for this Scottish side, and Phil Matthews and Andrew Cotter will describe it for you.
Yes, time, John, for some very young and very inexperienced Scottish players to show what they're made of. This will be as hard a 40 minutes as they've faced. They'll have had a hard team talk at half-time. They are now really playing for pride with Scottish rugby, as Andy Nichols said. They're standing on the edge of the precipice. And the restart is out in the full, and it doesn't augur well.
Yeah, we thought at half-time there may be a couple of changes, and it looks like Matt Williams has brought on John Petrie for Alistair Hogg at number 8. Maybe a what he hopes might be a safer pair of hands.
Coming on for Scott Gray, I think. And Hugo Southwell has come on for Stuart Moffat at fullback. Southwell had played against Australia in the 2 tests in June. What has he entered here? Gregan again to Larkham. And the biggest knock-on ever seen at Murrayfield, and Scotland have it. Lamont is bundled into touch.
You'll slip this side halfway, Dix? Okay.
Mortlock, it was coming through, just overran the ball slightly.
Yeah, it's just over the ball. In fact, Alistair Hogg still on the pitch for Scott Gray, so John pitch over Scott Gray.
The class of Australian backs. Mortlock, one of many, and as I said, Wendell Saylor and Matt Rogers waiting in the wings. This is Lamont now, in off his wing and up over the halfway line. Cussiter will certainly not give up.
No, guys.
And it's Lamont who picks and goes himself.
Turn over here.
But it's lost once again. Smith to Gregan. Rathbone coming in on the dummy, but interference, and Scotland have the penalty just as Latham started to stretch his legs.
Yes, and unfortunately Chris Latham had the ball, or else you could have imagined Chris Cutter really having a cut with that and trying to keep the pace of this game going. But as it is, Dan Parks going for the touch, giving Scotland the attacking line out about 15 yards out from the Australian try line. What can they work from here?
With all the time that impressive Australian replacements bench warming up. Now some noise from Murrayfield, and a chance for Scotland. If they're to take anything, an early score is essential. They have the line out, and now they try and get the drive. Just crabbing infield a little bit and back again. And through the middle, a splinter movement carries it up to within 8 metres or so. Cussiter a little bit too slow, was he?
7 gold.
No, Scottish penalty. Illegally claimed.
Not back 10 advantage.
Quickly taken. Still playing Scottish advantage. Australians not back 10.
Let it go, gold.
Scotland carrying it on with the roar of the crowd carrying them forwards. Just a couple of metres out, Cussiter. It's Lamont for the line, and it's Lamont over. And Sean Lamont, his debut try, a little bit of atonement for mistakes in the first half, and Scotland have their early score.
Yeah, well, Gordon Bullock did exactly the right thing with that penalty. Took it very quickly, didn't give Australia time to react. They won the penalty. Should they have needed it in the end, they didn't. They were able to hold on to possession, and that bruising encounter to 5 yards from the line, and Lamont did very well to hold on to that ball in the tackle. He's a big, strong guy, maybe not had his best defensive game in a while, but from there he was able to hold on to it, both arms on the ball, and no doubt about that one.
It's a game we'd want to forget so far, but a try to remember for many a long year. And can Chris Patterson make it a 7-point try? The answer is yes. And just a chink of light, just the merest, slimmest chink of light for Scotland.
The Scottish maul going well. It looks to be pretty well drilled in practice. Willie Anderson's obviously been working hard on that. But again, you might have put your money on Lamont being tackled there, but he went so low, he made it very, very difficult for big Daniel Vickerman to get down and really challenge him properly.
Wants to deal with the blood, but I think he wants to stop it. Mark, can you just
slightly
check?
better
Do you
fare
guys want to get this guy on?
for Scotland. And it's
Waiting.
going to be
Time off, please.
mass replacements for Australia. But a moment of cheer from Matt Williams and for the forwards coach there, Willie Anderson.
They're all coming really because they got themselves into position to do that. They were able to play the game because they were in a deep in Australian territory, which has been a rare enough occurrence in the first half. Too much of the game played in the Scottish half. Really need to get back down there right from this kickoff, secure possession and make sure they can keep out of their own territory for the next 15-20 minutes and just regain some of that confidence again.
Well, there's an indication of the quality of replacement. David Lyons, the Wallaby Player of the Year, has come on as a blood replacement for Phil Waugh. Long restart from Australia and an even heftier return. And will it beat Takiri to touch? No. Former league man feeds it infield. And it's Latham who is rather off target with his kick.
Yeah, but that's good, Moffat's kick, because he didn't go for the touch. If not forced the error, produced the error. And again, Scotland, more importantly in Australian territory, with possession.
Quality everywhere in the Australian lineup. Chris Latham, some say just keeping the Wallabies jersey, 15 jersey, warm for Matt Rogers, who's just recovered from an ankle injury. But here's a chance for Scotland. Long throw from Bullock, looked a little bit squint, and it was.
It went down the line. Scrum it, is it?
An Australian scrum it will be.
And a rare mistake from Gordon Bullock there. That really is key. Yeah, it never really was on line, was it?
Scratch and hold, waiting. No,
Difficult to keep this ball sticky and dry in these conditions.
Mistake from Lyons with his first almost touch of the ball.
Number 8, last feet. 8 goal. 7, blue.
Another chance for Scotland. Long pass from Parks. Taken on now by Southwell, coming into the line, looking for support inside, but only Larkham is there for another attack from Scotland, which has set up an even more promising attacking position. And Scotland seem to have come to life in the second half.
Yeah, well, they're playing the game in Australian territory, and what a difference that makes. Getting the ball wild early, which is just the right thing to do, which gives Scottish three-quarters a little bit of time and space. Even though the ball is effectively given back to Australia, the Scottish pressure is such that it gives them a really good attacking proposition again from this line out.
Hugo Southwell making an early impact as replacement at full-back.
Goal 10.
And Gordon Bullock will not want to founder with his throw as he did with the last line out. Again, goes long, just over the heads of the Scottish players, but they may well still have seized upon it. Just a few metres out, Cussiter sets free Bullock, who's barged back in the tackle and loses the ball. And Gregan gets a chance to clear, and just does so.
Oh, well, what a player, George Smith. George Gregan will be thanking his open side forward there. Was a thumping tackle. The number of times that Smith's tackles result in turnovers. Awesome tackler. Such a strong, solid, committed guy. Great technique. No trouble in getting low to the tackle for George Smith. He's at perfect height for those type of tackles.
Still a Scottish line-out though, just inside the Australian 22, safely gathered. And here comes the drive again. And here comes the cry from the crowd as Scotland edge and creep and shunt closer to the Australian line. And still they go and try and break away and splinter off the side. Now it's to ground, and now it's the back line's turn. And here comes Lamont once again, and it's out there to Southwell. Southwell inside and over the line. Has he got the ball down? The crowd say yes, Southwell says yes, the referee says we'll watch the tape.
Well, there'll be no doubt about this one. Again, ball grounded, very similar to Australia's decision, but
the ball in his position, grounded the ball in goal, please.
Balls, yeah. So the question really is, was the ball grounded in goal? It was certainly grounded before. Not going to say it from this angle necessarily. Yeah.
Donald, have you got
Didn't look to be grounded, and Hugo Southwell certainly thought it was.
It's certainly grounded there. Not going to see it from that position. He slides over, but I think from the first angle we saw that ball grounded.
Is Donald Courtney going to deprive Hugo Southwell of his first try for Scotland? I don't think he can.
Well, we didn't think he could last time, but I don't think he possibly can this time. How many more looks does he need at this one? Because I don't think that's going to offer him any more clarity on a decision.
Sterling Mortlock was doing his very best. It's for that second movement that it seemed to be grounded. It rose for just a moment. Cancelled out what seemed to be an Australian try in the first half. What will he do to Scotland's effort?
Well, he clearly wants to take his time with this one, because I have to say, I think he made a mistake the first time, the first try.
Would be cruel to deny him. That's grounded now.
Yeah, that's got to be. That is grounded. There's no doubt about that. And that's not the first time we've seen that angle before.
Try for Hugo Southwell, try for Scotland. 2 in this half. They have come to life.
They have. Maybe Australia taking their foot off the pedal a little bit, but I don't think that's fair to Scotland's performance in the second half. The key is they've been playing the game in the Australian half of the pitch. It shows you what you can do if you're just patient. The points will come.
Rather slight, bedraggled figure of Chris Patterson.
They just fell in too much of a rut in that first half. Played far too much of the game. Found it in their own half. Found it very, very difficult to get out. Got caught into the trap of just relieving pressure from kicks to touch, which really didn't relieve the pressure.
Through the routine again goes Chris Patterson, and through the posts goes the conversion. And Scotland, well, it's more than respectability now. They still trail by 14 points, but it's now Scotland 14, Australia 28.
They're really taking a leaf out of the Australians' books. With that dummy runner in midfield, just checking the Australian defence and then moving that ball in wide. Lamont really coming from the opposite wing. It was very well worked.
Someone gave him a talking to at half-time. To be just about lost forward by Scotland.
Lock on. Scrum.
And it's an Australian scrum, and better news for Scotland, better news for their former captain Andy Nicol.
Yes, Andrew, very encouraging start to the second half. And Scotland have done nothing that special. They've just eradicated the mistakes. They've executed their skills well. They've hit their line outs. They've run at pace. They've run at space, and it's been very encouraging.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which team you said had knocked it on.
Far better viewing for Matt Williams, who's barking instructions. Look at the time in the opponent's half in the second half. Australia have been pegged back and have paid the price. And as Andy was saying, Australia punished Scotland with simple tries in the first half. It's only really been simple tries for Scotland in the second.
Absolutely, they've really taken a leaf out of the Australians' book and done exactly what they did to them in the first half. The key is, can they make the most of, or can they hold on to the territorial advantage?
10!
Scotland have to build on that start to the second half. But Australia now launch their latest onslaught.
Heads off, Blue!
Gregan finds Gito.
Tackler! Away! Last feet, guys.
And Gito once again.
Last feet.
Busy little back.
3, push last feet for me, eh?
Australian forwards trying to do their bit in softening up the Scottish defence. Justin Harrison has his say. Larkham probing, poking the ball to the corner, which he does well.
Yeah, Larkham just trying to reverse that 91-9 territory advantage to Scotland.
Good, mate. Thank you.
He knows what needs to be done. Confidence in the Australian line. He won't mind giving Scotland possession, because all he wants is that pattern that settled in the latter part of the second half was Australia stay deep in Scottish territory. Doesn't matter if Scotland win this ball, unless they're prepared to run it out. He knows he's going to get possession, probably at worst somewhere between the 10-yard line and the 22, and all of a sudden they're in attacking position again. Let's just see if it pans out that way.
Summit meeting for the Scottish forwards, and Bill Young's doing his bit of eavesdropping.
Well, Scotland really do need to do something different here, because
bring them on.
Dan Parks can't afford just to kick straight to touch here.
Scottish injury, and on will come as a blood replacement for Scott McLeod, Alistair Kellogg,
Count this guy as well, these two.
for his first Scottish cap. He's being thrown into the cauldron. Scotland have it at the back. Referee playing Scottish advantage. Under pressure again, Parks gets the kick away. Good kick, Rathbone has it. Thinks about the quick throw. Thinks better of it.
Yeah, pretty much as we thought. It's Australian possession, just inside the Scottish 10-yard line.
Scotland! Scotland! Give me space.
Ireland, South Africa will be a fascinating encounter.
Leave him in the air.
Next week. But Scotland are making this intriguing in the second half. thumped in the first, 2 tries in the second. Under pressure here.
No advantage back here. Man in the ear. 15.
And Australia have a penalty.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was handily won.
Taking the man in the ear.
Taking them, pulling the man down in the air. Not allowed to do that until he's grounded. Pulling him down without support, it's deemed dangerous play.
I think it was over eagerness from the new man Alistair Kellock. And Matt Gito will just peg Scotland a little bit further back. It'll be an Australian line-out just inside the Scottish 22. I wonder if Matt Williams just told Scotland at half-time, try and cut out the basic errors and things might happen.
Yeah, there are going to be errors on both sides in this game, but I think more importantly they're just going to have to get into a pattern of game where they're getting more territory, because they won't be able to withstand this Australian pressure. And that's a good turnover ball there.
Stolen under pressure. Scotland pinch Jeremy Ball's line out. And the high hanging kick from Cussiter. Lammonts quickly up. And it's Rathbone under pressure, but Australia have it. And now they have a backline strung out, and now setting themselves forward. It's Mortlock. Well held round the bootlaces. Vickerman, another couple of yards made. Still punching away down that blind side. Gregan with heavier men coming in support. Options through the middle now for Australia, but pinched, and if Scotland move it quickly, which they try, Parks though decides to send the kick and get men scurrying after it, but it's only Australians there at the moment. Ali Hogg was in hot pursuit, but plenty of time for Chris Latham. Once again, just a moment, and it was created by turnover ball.
There was, and Chris Cussiter, importantly, putting up that Gary Owen, gave Scotland the chance to get that turnover ball by not kicking to touch and just letting Australia get back into that pattern again. He's made them competitive. They competed for that ball. That's what's going to happen. Much happier with this Scottish midfield defence from broken play rather than from set pieces. It looks an awful lot more solid because they've got some of their forwards out there. Much more difficult for Australia to break them down.
Look out, everybody. Wendell's on his way. Sure, if you really want to see Wendell Sailor, if you're a Scottish player coming off the bench, I think he might have been in a gym in his time.
He's big enough to pretty much play anywhere in the forwards and the back line, isn't he? He's a huge man. I mean, you think that the likes of Jonah Lomu's big. This guy is just as big.
Clyde Rathbone's done himself a mischief in his hand. And Wendell Sailor's in the field. And Matt Burke, Australia just have to step up their performance a little bit, because Scotland are producing something.
Absolutely. I think that the biggest thing about Scotland's performance at the moment is their defence. They're actually in the face of the Australians, which is limiting their opportunity to get across the advantage line. Once they do that, they've created so much more ball for themselves and obviously scoring points. But Australia's got to go back to playing smart football and getting in the opposition's half.
Your fellow countrymen have pinched the ball and they get a scrum. The formidable figure of former league man, try-scoring machine for the Brisbane Broncos, and in the past couple of years or so for the Wallabies as well. Wendell Sailor is on for Clyde Rathbone. And here comes Australia. Larkham with a look with Gito, and now Mortlock. And Latham picks up the loose ball. Australian forwards do their bit. And still carried forward into contact. But Scottish penalty. Things are just not firing for the Australian attack as they did in the first half.
Yeah, well, as Matt Burgess pointed out, the Scottish defence in this half is getting much more in the Australians' face, particularly for broken play. They've not been exposed from the set pieces the way they were in the first half. Australia just penalised for holding on there, and it just shows you if they're patient, make their tackles, don't give away penalties cheaply, they can get the turnover ball and they can get themselves into a good attacking position.
Which they are, into the 22 with the hoof of Dan Parks' boot. Pressure again on the Bullock line-out, finding his man. Hines carries it on, and Scotland come through. Jacobson, Cussiter, upended. McFadgen's pass is loose, and Petrie can only... Well, he's gathered it, and it didn't go forward. And Scotland still have their attacking position. Morrison. Scotland at the moment, though, going backwards in attack. Southwell, little poke to the corner. And too far for Lamont, too far for everyone, and out on the full.
Maybe just running out of patience there, because they're showing a good deal of patience in defence. Just needed a little bit more patience into attack. All that was needed really was to put that ball nowhere near the touchline, but just deeper into Australian territory, and chances are they'd be throwing in the line-out.
That's the position of the Australian line-out, and that's Larkham finding Sailor. An early foray for the big wing. And Larkham with a huge kick again. Not finding touch, well, not going for touch, finding Lamont to find Southwell, and he finds huge acres of space, and the ball just about finds touch, but to the disappointment of the crowd, it doesn't. Now it does, via an Australian boot, and it'll be a Scottish line-out.
Well, it was the right idea, it was the right execution. Says that, look, he doesn't want to be putting this ball into touch, so he comes out of his 22 to give himself a bit more distance. It was a good kick, whether it had gone in or not.
On this extra narrow pitch. In play, and we're in play once again. Australia pinching the line out over the head of Guito to Mortlock. He cuts back infield once again. Powerful centre to the halfway line.
Let it go!
Scotland say the ball's out. George Gregan says no, but Scotland pay no attention. Cussiter onto Petrie, carries it on. The ball is loose once again. Error upon error at the moment from both sides. Who makes the fewer? Hines bullying his way up to the 10-metre line. Good charge from Bruce Douglas.
Backwards, guys. Here it come!
And the captain leading by example, and
Okay,
Scotland
guys, here we go. Come on, side.
up over the Australian 10-metre line. Just ticking through the phases.
Advantage over.
Southwell once again. And out on the full just after the referee had said advantage over.
Okay. There's a mistiming, I just called it over, okay?
Well, that was a difficult one for Southwell to get down.
Yeah, mate,
with a strained defence in his face. He had to give it just a bit too much height, and it carried over that touchline. It's like Gordon Bullock hurt once he was taking the ball up.
It looks like it's Alan Jacobson.
Yeah, it's actually Alan Jacobson, as you say.
Not for the first time, down and breathing hard. Looks like he might have been winded. Again, Scotland are going through the phases and keeping things ticking over.
Well, that's where Jacobson must have hurt himself. Yeah, but again, they're able to do that because they're playing most of this game in Australian territory. They seem an awful lot more composed on the ball this half.
Scott McLeod is back on after having a bit of blood mopped up. Alistair Kellogg is off, and the second row for Scotland is back as it started. Larkham again. Ball spilled. Did it go forward? It didn't look as if it did, but the referee scampers forward, blowing whistle loudly, and says it did.
Yeah, famous last words, just as I said, they were looking a little bit more composed. You can see that
it didn't go forward.
Hugo Southwell took his eye off the ball. Whether that went forward or not is a moot point now, I'm afraid. But just took his eye off it, looking to see who was coming at him before he really secured possession.
Prime attacking position for Australia, and their backline strung out at an angle. Guito, little mismove with Wendell Sailor crashing in off his wing, doing the damage but losing the ball. Australia though have a penalty, and the crowd don't like it.
I need him on his feet.
Well, Donny McFadden very tempting for the number 7, but just accused of going in off the ground. Needs to stay on his feet. Just Cussiter's tackle. Here comes McFadden. Yeah, he slides into that, making contact with the tackled player. It's a clear penalty.
Donny McFadden, who
It's just on the 22 if you want.
really made a name for himself. He's been about for a while, but made a name for himself on the tour, down under in the summer. Was targeted by Eddie Jones as one of the Scottish players to watch. And has been in decent form in the Celtic League this season. But Matt Guito, from McFadden's mistake, will have a fairly straightforward chance for Australia's first points in the second half, 20 minutes since the break. Ignoring the boos, Guito strokes it forward, and it sneaks inside. Looks as if it might have just skirted wide. But 3 points for Australia, and they creep over the 30-point mark. There has been a strange performance from Australia in the second half after the fireworks which we saw on the pitch in the first half.
Well, I think an awful lot of that has been due down to Scotland as well, and that they've defended a lot better and they've been a little bit more patient, a little bit more relaxed on the ball, got the turnovers and made the most of the territorial possession.
And they enveloped Takiri and Australia under pressure, but a good kick from Stephen Larkham. Classy fly half, Larkham. Again, Scotland will have a line out on the Australian 10-metre line. The last 20 minutes are going to be crucial, because usually that's when Scotland in the past have started to fade. Little 1-2 off the front of the line out. Bullock carries it forward. Parks quickly offloading to Henderson, who skirts back infield. And Cussiter takes his eye off the ball for a moment, and it's hacked on. And Australia have the scrum.
To me, scrum Australia ball. Sub on your side, guys. I think it might be tight head.
Scottish replacement coming on. So we see that Scotland still lead the time at opponent's half, quite comfortably, although Australia are coming back into it in terms of possession. And rumbling onto the field, with Bruce Douglas taking his leave, comes Craig Smith.
They also want one in your midfield guys off. Number 13. We'll wait for your boys to come
and
on.
a change in the back line as well.
Wait, guys, wait. Let them get defensively set.
Andy Craig onto the field in the centre in the place
Here's the mark
of Graham Morrison.
Don't move off the mark, guys. Judge and hold. Stay where you are,
Craig
please.
appeared to be a permanent fixture
Okay.
in the Scottish set-up a couple of seasons ago, but has lost his way a little bit, the former league man, as Australia come again.
Right, hands off. 17.
Scything the way down that blind side. It's Bill Young, the prop, carrying it forward and setting it back. And Larkham again going through the same manoeuvre which he's done so many times in the match, just testing the Scottish backs. Lamont finds Southwell, and he finds a very good touch indeed. Larkham juggling with it. And Hugo Southwell has added something to the Scottish back line.
He has, he's kicked well, he's got a good boot on him, and where Scotland have been forced to kick, they need to be able to kick very deep, because they've really just got to keep Australia as far away from their try line for the rest of this half as they can. They've got a challenge where they do give Australia chances to get possession at lineouts, try and get those turnovers.
Scott McLeod, the Hoyt lad, taped
Hands
up
off now.
around the head,
Stay there, guys.
but enjoying the second half rather more than the first. Again, but the kick is loose and straight into the welcoming arms of Nathan Hines. Parks under a bit of pressure. It's Patterson, in fact, skirting round the tackle. The referee's whistle has gone as the crowd rise to Patterson, and they'll have to come all the way back as Patterson is wrapped up in the tackle. And you saw for a moment the danger of Chris Patterson.
Well,
And
I'd like to see
Ali
that
Hall,
again, yeah, because it seemed more like Chris Patterson was cutting back inside the grain. I don't think it was deliberate crossing. However, the referee will interpret that. as irrelevant. If a Scottish player has obstructed a potential tackler, then it's going to be crossing. Yeah, Patterson. I think that's very harsh. Patterson just cut back inside Andrew Henderson.
Yeah.
There was no deliberate attempt to block by Henderson. That's a tough call.
And, as he was targeting the danger players earlier this week, Eddie Jones in the Scotland side, he also posed the question, why was Chris Patterson out in the wing?
You just come to here for me, eh?
Well, even on the wing he can do some damage.
Hold there.
Elusive runner. But now Australia, from that promising Scotland attack, have their chance.
No, come around, Blue. Right, come in, 5.
Lumbering and trundling their way into the Scottish 22.
19.
Still going, momentum building. And the legs pumping. Finally, Scotland put a stopper on it.
Last week, mate.
But Australia no more than 10 metres out. And Gregan will fire this back line. Larkham carried on now
Come around,
by Lyons.
Blue. Vantage.
The ball is loose. Scotland have it. Australia, though, have a penalty.
Look it away.
And it's Graham Morrison, Andy Henderson rather, infringing.
No, not in a penalty, mate. Post.
Not really clear what that was for, whether it was not rolling away from the tackle. Whenever story of going for the scrum.
Well, it was Andy Henderson who was punished.
Wait, guys.
Playing the ball in the ruck.
So let him get on. And
Sleight of hand. Not quite slight enough.
Blue 5 as well.
And another change for Australia. Joining the fray, the sizable frame of Matt Dunning, coming on for Bill Young in the front row.
Crouch and hold. I'll let you get
Well, this is where I think Australia are at their most dangerous from set pieces. Both sets of forwards tied up in the scrum gives this
unstable. I agree.
Australian three-quarter an awful lot more time and space. They've got roughly equal open and blind side, so well, they've got as much space as they would like, but
let's get down.
never been a problem to them in the past.
Engage.
And Alistair Kellock is on permanently now for Scott McLeod in the second row after his cameo appearance earlier. The Australian scrum under pressure, the ball is loose and hacked long. Now pressure on Australia. It's Matt Guito who's back there. It's Matt Guito who's tasting the turf. And Scotland pouring forward, but it's still...
Come on side now. Thank you, mate.
Looks to be Australian ball. Feeding frenzy on the ground, but Australia have it, and George Smith sees a half gap and is almost through, but Henderson hauls him down and it comes back on the Scottish side. Can they tidy it up?
Two round. Last feet.
Ali Hogg comes in to play scrum half. Carried on by Petrie to Bullock. His shot ripped asunder, but he carries it up over the 10-metre line. Now Southwell, Parks pokes the kick down for Lamont to chase. Lamont up on Latham, and the Australian fullback stands strong and it's set back, and Guito with his left boot to this near side touch, but will only take play 10 metres or so away from the Australian line, and Scotland will have their chance again.
Well, Chris Latham did ever so well to stand up in the tackle and not just go in the touch, but that's exactly the right play by Dan Parks. Put that ball deep into the Australian 22, kept it out of touch, and gives Scotland a really good attacking chance in this line if they can just secure possession.
Stephen Larkham is off. Elton Flatley enjoyed that kicking duel. Well, he didn't enjoy it actually, with Johnny Wilkinson in the World Cup final. Is on at fly half. And another change, and for the first time since the World Cup final, Matt Rogers is on the field for Australia. Coming on for Stirling Mortlock. Players of great calibre coming on for Australia everywhere. And a new jersey for Gordon Bullock, Alistair Kellock
17
in the second
squeeze
row.
your side a little, thank you. Try back on. Stay there, 17.
Good attacking position for Scotland. The numberless one throws in, and it's taken well by Ali Hogg in the centre of the Scottish line out. And the crowd cry for the heave.
Let it go now!
But it doesn't come. The ball does though. And Bullock
No!
sets himself a little bit further forward. Now Parks, options behind him.
4!
Still Scotland have it, but they don't anymore because Hines has spilled the ball.
And the tackle went down and forward, scrum gold.
And it's an Australian scrum.
Oh, that is crucial. Nathan Hines just leading a little bit too much with the ball. He's going to keep it away from the contact area when he goes into contact. You can just see he's just carrying a little bit too much into contact. Very easy for an Australian arm to knock that out.
Australian scrum, but still inside their own 22 and under pressure.
It's a ruck, guys.
Wendell Sailor by sheer brute force.
Tackler, get out.
Carrying Australia forward. Clip back to Gito. And the ball is skyward and towards the east stand.
Australia just muscling it out of their 22 on that occasion. Low, and there's a bit of a scrap going on between Justin Harrison and Donny McFadden.
Donny McFadden comes up to his waist. Shades of Austin Healy and Justin Harrison.
Well, like all good open side flankers, he hasn't got too much sense, and he's certainly not going to back down from a big man like Justin Harrison.
I think Harrison may have had the upper hand.
Well, to reach the player, yeah, and then proceeded to shake him around. So yeah, should be penalised.
Penalty over here.
Should be penalised.
Okay.
Totally unnecessary.
There was no punching in there. There was scragging and unnecessary.
But I think Donny McFadden may be rewarded.
Yeah, it looks like it. Still a penalty against Justin Harrison.
Penalty will be.
Will they take the 3 points? I think they'll have to go for the line out.
This man knows what it's for. Unnecessary play, okay.
And this is what it's for.
Certainly we didn't see that.
Well, Harrison declined to use the clenched fist and just give him a little bit of a slap and a shake, but it was enough for the referee to award Scotland a penalty.
He'll say he was trying to free himself, but it's a Scottish penalty, and it's Dan Parks to poke it into the corner.
Whereas if they can get this possession, there's no reason why they can't go over from the line out. The maul's been working very well. Australia, if they don't get this down immediately, they'll want to take it, get it to ground as soon as they possibly can.
17 points the gap, just a little bit more than Pride still to be played for. And Scotland have it if somewhat untidy at the front. Now they carry it on. Spearing drive from the forwards, just a few metres out, rocking ferociously, and they have a scrum.
Hey, goal 17, don't you even start it.
As you told.
What? Yeah, they drove over. Yeah, I know that. That's why it's... Pardon?
That's the ball he needs, you know.
No, they drove over.
Good Australian lad, Nathan Hines. Enjoying a bit of banter with his former countrymen.
What are we doing,
Scottish
guys?
pack did enjoy wearing out some aluminium studs on the back of some unfortunate Australian, but referees, particularly Southern Hemisphere referees, think that's all part of the game, which it is. If you didn't know, you shouldn't be there.
Big moment for the Scottish scrum.
Let's get down and steady.
But that was a false start.
Again! Steady here. Don't go in. Don't go in.
The scrum is steady at the moment. Just being squeezed though, and Australia have the turnover.
Around
90
90.
degrees it Field.
The referee blew that up fairly quickly.
Oh, frustrating, so frustrating for Scotland. And their 21st error may be a costly one.
Come up to the mark, please. Come up to the mark.
Still just a few metres out from the Australian line, but Wallaby ball.
Get down. Engage. Pack a bit far away. Feet up underneath you. I know it was just a slip. Get up. I want you a little bit closer, please. Waiting. Get down. Engage.
Slip from Craig Smith in the Scottish front row, and they'll do it again. Rock steady Australian scrum, and it's picked up off the back. Rowe under pressure though. And a kick from Gregan, which takes Australia no further than 22, but they have seized the ball. And Gito now with a bit more time to send a long kick downfield, and all Hugo Southwell can do is watch it bouncing away, and the danger for Australia for the moment is gone.
Well, it is, and Australia are past masters of that. Prior to that, you can see that Gregan had put up the Gary Owen. Latham knew exactly what was going to happen. This big Australian back three up in the air, they win the ball, gives them an extra 10 or 15 yards to make a longer touch. Danger over.
Good take from Kellogg for Scotland though. The pass is loose, and again just mistakes creeping in. Still Scotland have the ball though, but they're being forced back even as they try and attack. Kick from Cussiter. And Saylor has his giant hands on the ball now. Tries to build up a head of steam, but is well marshalled, well brought down. Gregan goes left, Rogers comes in a furious clash ball, but it's lost, and chance for Andy Craig. Southwell now to Bullock, route one for the hooker. Patterson juggling with it. And Cussiter under pressure from the sizeable figure of Matt Dunning. Time for the kick, says Dan Parks. Again though, no pressure on Latham. Quick line out from Southwell. But the kick, to the groans of the crowd, is a mile out of the full, and Lamont gives a rueful shake of the head. Another replacement for Australia. On comes Mark Chisholm to earn his first cap in place of Daniel Vickerman. Scotland have to try and ensure that his first few moments as a Wallaby are not an armchair ride. See a frustration of Sean Lamont instantly. Is that a consoling word from Jeremy Paul?
Yeah, they put a lot into that kick. He really didn't need to be done. A little bit more control, just knock it down into the territory was all it needed.
Good take for Australia, but rather loose tap back, and Gregan's put under pressure, so Smith comes in to play scrum half. Rowe carries it forward up to the Scottish 10 metre line.
Let it go, 8 blue.
From Australia once again, it's carried on by Flatley, looking for support to his shoulder from Chisholm, and Chisholm with his first touch of the ball is an untidy touch as the try line opened up before him.
Drop down. Donald, do you want to give me a time call, bud?
Well, both Chisholm and Matt Rogers, players just coming into this game late, all having difficulty with this ball, so we'll have to take it that it is difficult to handle tonight. That really should have been held. Try to take it in one instead of two hands.
All the replacements rolling onto the field, and Gordon Bullock, the captain, takes his leave. They can be proud of Scotland's second half performance, because we feared a rout. Picked up by Hogg, but again the tackles come raining in.
No, it's not, mate.
Mike Blair, who's on for Cussiter, and the clearing kick is good from Dan Parks.
Well, the scores stay the way they are. It's almost a mirror image of the two tests in Australia last summer. Not more than a few points between them, but he thinks that the scoreboard's got a bit of work to do yet before this game's over.
Brendan Cannon going through his warm-up routine, the Australian hooker, but Jeremy Paul does a fine job, and Australia's line out to secure, and that looks a little bit high on the Australian. Matt Gito, this is Rogers, squirming his way through half a half a tackle.
Right, guys, 8, come around.
Just inside the Scottish half. Gregan quickly seized upon though.
Just the ball. Come
Still
on,
Australian
go.
ball just inside the Scottish half.
22.
All the while instructions from the referee Steve Walsh, and it's a penalty for Scotland.
It's a couple to go, fellas. There is time for a line out.
Now Scotland can peg Australia back once again into their half. It'll be Dan Parks.
Yeah, no, just in the middle of that red stuff.
All the players breathing hard. And it's a decent nudge from Parks, and it's into the Australian 22, and it's a Scotland line out, and the roar from the crowd tells you that Scotland may not yet be finished. Just under 3 minutes remaining. Is there a final flourish to add to this? Really impressive second half for Scotland. Line out taken quickly, taken by Kellock. Scottish forwards piling in, but stout Wallaby defence. Blair excavating the ball, and it's carried on by Hogg. Now Dan Parks, little kick for the chase, but Lamont misread it, misunderstood, and also was taken out. It was for the winger to chase.
Well, Lamont's no pushover, and you can see the sailors just stood up in his way and pretty much act as though he didn't have the time to get out of his way. 50-50 call, but either way the kick was good enough, and it's, albeit that it's an Australian line-out, it's a pressured line-out for Australia, about 6 metres out from their try line.
Pressure on Brendan Cannon's first throw on the Australian line. It's safe, it's good, it's Justin Harrison's, and a huge drive from the men in green and gold. Still in the danger area, but they have the precious ball. Smuggling it, George Smith. Scotland trying to put a halt to this slow, laborious Australian march away from their own try line. And George Gregan heaves it high and into touch, and Wendell Saylor makes sure there's no quick line out. I think Australia now just about looking to see the clock down.
Well, if any team will know what to do in closing minutes just to keep Scotland away from their try line, it's Australia. It's a great kick by Gregan. This game is won. It's just a matter of the margin now, but they won't want to give up any more points cheaply.
Is there anything left for Scotland to offer? Kellett, little pat back to Blair. This move, and now it's taken by Lamont, and out there to Southwell, but spills it with one hand. The ball just eluding his fingertips. It's been the tale of much of the match.
Well, he'll be disappointed with himself when he looks at that one. He really should be reaching for that with both hands. It's fairly basic. Particularly with this greasy ball, he can't afford to do that.
Into injury time. Next time the ball goes dead, should be an end to proceedings. But they'll have to do this scrum all over again.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Come up a little closer, Gold. Engage. Right.
What can Australia do with their final ball of the game? Do they even have the ball now? It's taken by Scotland, but not before Steve Walsh awarded an Australian scrum. But that's the end of the match. The whistle from Steve Walsh, and a decent second half performance from Scotland, because they feared it might have been a rout with 4 unanswered tries in the first half from Australia. But a try from Sean Lamont and from Hugo Southwell, debut tries for both those men, and it has been at least respectable in the second half. Victory for Australia, comfortable in the end. Australia victors at Murrayfield, 31 points to 14.
Yeah, as a law, it's going to finish like a little bit of a damp squid. Australia will be kind of pleased enough to kick their tour off with winning ways, but I think Scotland, particularly with that second half performance, will have a little bit more to glean from. Pity they didn't start off in the first half like that, and they just gave up an awful lot of cheap territory, didn't they?
So signs of encouragement for Scotland as they prepare for matches against Japan, a second test against Australia to come in a couple of weeks' time, and then South Africa. Signs perhaps of green shoots of recovery in that second half. They have been well beaten. 31 points to 40 in the final score at Murrayfield.
Well, a win for Australia ultimately, with Sterling Mortlot, the man of the match here today, getting the opening scorer. Sterling, hardly ideal conditions for an Aussie. How relieved for this team to get a win?
Oh, reasonably happy to get a decent win under our belt for our first game for this spring tour. But we prepared knowing it was probably going to be wet conditions. I think the first half we were pretty happy with that performance, but unfortunately dropped off in the second half. So something to build on for next week.
You certainly did, because you raced into a 28-point lead after you got the opening score. How frustrated are you couldn't maintain that momentum?
Yeah, we'll definitely look at the video and see aspects of our game that we didn't do too well in the second half, and really look to work on them for the week leading up to the France test next week.
You'll certainly have to perhaps step up a gear, but for now you're the Abbey man of the match. Congratulations. Share it with your teammates.
Thank you very much. I will. Cheers.
Well, Andy Nicol, game of two halves.
It was, John, and we did say at half-time Scotland were standing at the edge of the precipice, and thankfully they were able to pull back from it and put in a fairly decent 40 minutes.
And Lamont scored that try so early on, which gave the whole second half a different shape.